he wasn't a toxic person. And, at that point, I was just really in a space where I was trying to, like, find myself and, just be a better person in general. But without healing, the thing is, if you do not heal, if you do not address the wound, there is no amount of trying to be a better person that you can do that would truly hide it. That wound still showed up, despite the fact that I was a kind of person that people would describe as a good person, but the actions that I did as a result of that wound are not actions that would be associated with a good person. And so now we're going to be talking about the boyfriend wound. So the third wound that prevents your feminine energy from flourishing is the boyfriend wound. So in this stage of the child's life, the child is expected to be in more of an independent phase in life. So this is a phase where the child is naturally expected to be able to pick a mate or pick a partner, to choose their own friends, to choose their own clothes, to choose their own style, to choose their own work, to choose their own career, and all of that. So this is the independent phase of the child's life. So everything in the child's biology has now kind of shifted, and like the hormone that once allowed for the child to be able to bond with the parents and be dependent on her parents has now kind of transformed. I don't know the best word to use. Has now kind of like transformed to a hormone that now allows the child to be able to detach from the parents and be more attached to external things. And these things actually covers like people, purpose, and other concepts like fashion and stuff like that. So now the child is more extrinsic than intrinsic. Now, how does the boyfriend wound occur? So just like I said, in the dependent phase of a child, the child is naturally looking up and depending, fully dependent on the parents to help the child to navigate, to help build the child up, and to help the child with internal developments and all of that. So now that the child is in the independent stage, the child is now, okay, we cannot really call the person a child. So now the lady is now looking up to all these external factors to help further build and develop herself and her character into the kind of woman that she wants to become, that she desires to become. So basically, the boyfriend is a very important factor in this independent phase, because the boyfriend now represents the person who is to be the leader of the lady, the future leader of the rest of her life. And he's also kind of like a epitome, or like the fortress on which herself and her kids are going to take shelter and safety for the rest of their lives. So when a woman has come into the phase where she desires a boyfriend, or and I'm not talking about teenage love, okay, I'm talking about when she gets to the stage of her independence, where she's fully developed and she's fully mindful, and she wants to make an intentional selection of a future partner. So when women are thinking of dating, this is what the average healthy minded healed woman is looking out for, because this is like the value that a masculine mate in a heterosexual relationship brings into her life. And this is the value that she's hoping to get in the process of mating with the man. So usually what happens is, when she eventually gets into a relationship and she has a boyfriend, and the boyfriend somehow fails to fulfill this role, or is gradually falling short of fulfilling this role that she expects, right? It becomes a problem. It begins to create like a friction in the relationship. So many a times, just like with the mother wound and the father wound, the victim is not aware. So it takes a victim that is perhaps already mindful of this soul wounds, or someone who is at least going to therapy, and they're being frequently or like constantly exposed to the knowledge of the heart, the soul, and like the mental health and all of that, the mental makeup. So, but if it's an average person that does not go to therapy and does not, talk about like all these personal issues, majority of the time they're not even aware. They'll just wonder how it is that, this once perfect relationship when they first started, now they're kind of like in the middle of the relationship, and no one is particularly hurting or cheating on each other, but there's just this resistance. You can't just place your finger on it. It is, most of the time, it is because that biological thing that we're meant to seek out in the pursuit of a male partner is not being fulfilled by the person that we are with. So your body keeps scores of these things. So usually when a lady experiences these things, it's her body telling her that, like he's not ticking the boxes, or he's beginning to fall from the standard. So it also happens with guys as well. It's not just a woman thing. A guy expects that when he's finally ready to pursue a woman and to mate with a woman and to create children and build a home with a woman, he has a certain biological expectation. So it's kind of like the list, and I think it's sort of programmed into our biology, and I think that is very similar for everyone. So there is an expectation, right? And usually when the lady is not meeting that expectation, it's a problem. So that resistance starts to build. So, but how does the boyfriend wound comes to be? So the boyfriend wound occurs when the boyfriend, who is supposed to be the representation of the biological expectation of the woman, now falls short of that biological expectation, or he kind of abuses his place. Abuse in such a way that, all those boyfriends who beat up their girlfriends, or they do stupid things like even cheating and all of that, those are abuses. So that guy who cheats and the one who is falling short, who's just nonchalant, he's not necessarily cheating, it's not hurting her, he's just falling short because he suddenly doesn't find those things important for him to thrive, to work towards. So she starts to like notice the resistance in her, and like the attraction level starts to drop, and eventually the relationship leads to a breakup. And just as it would lead to the same breakup with the guy who is actually abusing and being abusive in the relationship. So that is how a boyfriend wound occurs. So one would wonder, well, with the guy who fell short, it also depends on like the circumstance, but a lot of the time when that occurs, when that kind of wound occurs, it leaves the lady feeling like she's not desirable enough, she is not beautiful enough, she is not attractive enough for him to try. So, and that can be a serious wound, but not as serious as the father and the mother wound. So the feminine energy, like I said, the feminine energy is a flowy energy. It is water energy. So when your feminine energy is not healed, it's impossible to even attain the level of divine femininity. You need to first understand the concept of femininity, and that is why I have these videos where I explained like the whole idea of femininity and what it's really about and what it really is, and the difference between femininity and divine femininity. That is a video I'm going to make very soon. So a woman needs to understand the concept of femininity first before divine femininity. When you feel undesired and unattractive as a feminine being, it results into you self-sabotaging yourself in so many ways. And a lot of the ways that I've seen, modern women overcompensate for this boyfriend wound is You see them do a lot of excessive and, in my own opinion, unnecessary, invasive beauty procedures on themselves just in order to appear more desirable to the taste of other men, or like men in general. All of that is stemming from that void that is being created by the boyfriend wound. The wound that comes from that indirect or direct rejection or abuse from an ex-boyfriend. Another way that I've seen modern women overcompensate for the boyfriend wound is envy towards other women, especially the women in society that are perceived as more beautiful. They tend to be more um, admired and more popular, with the men. So you see a lot of the women with boyfriend wounds and all of that, kind of envying those women. So another way that I have seen the boyfriend wound show up in a woman's life is in situations whereby the woman already has a father wound, especially around the areas of her father's relationship with her mother, right? So it is very easy, because what that lady does is that she goes into every relationship. She goes into that first relationship with that mindset that is fixated on the fear of the repetition of whatever negative experience happened between her father and her mother happening to her. So that fear becomes like a mindset, because it's something that is, constantly in her subconscious mind. So that is another way that I have seen the boyfriend wound occur. But in the case of a healed feminine woman, for instance, that is a woman that does not have a father wound and does not have like a previous boyfriend wound. So what usually happens in her first relationship is that she is most likely going to enter the relationship with a more healthier mindset. So there is less chances of her having like a negative experience or even attracting negative men as boyfriends. Talk more of having that negative experience that would now scar her and, wound her soul basically. But in the case of a woman that is walking into her relationship, who is already carrying a father wound, she is more likely going to end up with a negative man as a boyfriend, which is what ultimately results in the boyfriend wound after the relationship is ended. I have seen what a negative boyfriend is like what being in a relationship with a negative boyfriend can be like how damaging and how um like how damaging it can truly be to your soul. And I have also have the blessing, should I say, or like the luck of also being in a healthy relationship with a healthier boyfriend. So for me, before I met with a healthier boyfriend who is now my ex anyway. So before that relationship, I had gone on like quite a stretch of a break, intentionally trying to heal. But back then, I did not have any knowledge of psychology or anything deep at all. So I was pretty much just taking a break from dating. So I wasn't necessarily healing or like trying to heal intentionally. I just felt like, okay, I've had enough of negative boyfriends in my life, and I just wanted to take a break at that point. And around that period, I wasn't healed. Okay, so like the wound was still there, but it wasn't as active because he wasn't a toxic person. And, at that point, I was just really in a space where I was trying to, like, find myself and, just be a better person in general. But without healing, the thing is, if you do not heal, if you do not address the wound, there is no amount of trying to be a better person that you can do that would truly hide it. So what happened in this other healthier relationship is that so I like the wound, the boyfriend wound was kind of like suppressed until like towards the end, because it was a very long relationship. Until like towards the end of the relationship, then it started to show, and like it started to show because like I started to manifest some behaviors and attitude and thoughts from that wound, because we just went through this period of like separation because of long distance and everything. And if you've ever been in a long distance relationship, I know that you can relate to how sometimes how crazy it can be, especially if you're someone who overthinks. Like, and I was kind of like that kind of person back then. So I was really sensitive, and there were periods that I would just feel like this person is not really communicating enough. I'm not getting enough of this person. What could be going on? So all of that period of insecurity and that stress and that tension, it brought back the wound, the boyfriend wound that I thought was gone. But like I said, at that point of my life, I did not know anything about trauma or wound or any of that. I just knew that I was just focused on being a good person. And I truly believe that I was a good person. But at that moment when the stress and all this negative thoughts started to come in, when I felt like I just feel like I couldn't trust this person anymore. I don't really know what this person is doing over there in his own area. I started to entertain like thoughts that would normally come out of someone with a boyfriend wound. So I started to feel like, okay, this person is about to do what the previous boyfriends have done, like that abandonment stuff, right? So I had so much, like I had spent so much time in that thought that it became my reality at some point. Again, the fact that we were also distant at the time did not help the situation at all. So it just got to a point that it became my reality. I genuinely believed that this person had abandoned me. And I went and I started doing things that, you know, someone who feels abandoned would normally do. And I will not get into the depth of that in this video because I'm just really trying to focus on the most important topic. But the fact is that wound still showed up, despite the fact that was I was a kind of person that people would describe as a good person, but the actions that I did as a result of that wound are not actions that would be associated with a good person. And of course, like, long story short, we broke up, and that was partly what actually caused it. Like, the action that I did was partly what led to the breakup. And like, long after that, when I started going through my healing journey, I started to really understand these things a bit more deeper, and I started to take healing seriously and all of that. But the point is, at that point, I was trying to be good. I would have just been a better, more feminine lady, but that boyfriend wound kind of suppressed the potential for that. So this is one of the ways that a boyfriend wound can really, really affect a woman from having her divine feminine energy flourishing. Whereas a woman with a healed or a woman who does not have any boyfriend wound drama, she is that kind of woman that even if she breaks up in her relationships, she's that kind of woman that is still able to maintain a good relationship, like a respectful, let me say, a respectful relationship with her ex-boyfriend. So it's usually wouldn't be like that kind of messy kind of thing, because I wasn't like overly wounded. So I think to a degree I was still able to maintain a respectful relationship with this ex-boyfriend. We are no longer like in active contact, but there's just that respect from a distance. And that wasn't the case with my previous exes. That was what I wanted to point out. That wasn't the case with them. So with them, the damage was just so much that I literally had to just like block them. Okay, well, not them, one in particular, one out of all of them in particular, that was just like the major toxic boyfriend. And more importantly, the woman who does not have a boyfriend wound, or who is healed, right? Even if she's in a situation where she has to break up from a relationship, she gets to live that relationship, still maintaining a respectful relationship with that ex-boyfriend. And more importantly, she still lives that relationship with a healthy mindset about men in general and about a male partner. Whereas a lot of women who live a toxic relationship, they usually live that toxic relationship with that new mentality of, oh, men are scum, men are cheats, men cannot be trusted, men are liars, and all of that. But the healthy woman, the woman who at least is leaving that relationship without any boyfriend wound or drama, she doesn't leave with a more negative narrative of, men in general, which was exactly what happened with me in the case of like my healthy relationship. There were some things that he did wrong, but at the bottom line of it all, he is a good person. Like, I left that relationship knowing that this person was truly a good person, and I did some crazy mistakes, but I am also a good person, and that is why that respect still exists. And the beauty of it is, I think that is also part of the things that really help to like speed off my healing and just really make me want to go through this healing journey. Honestly, that is the truth. It was one of the things that really motivated me to want to genuinely, like, just genuinely learn what it means to be a better person, what it means to be a better version of myself. So that is what a healed relationship, that is what being in a relationship with a healed masculine man would do. Not saying that he's perfect again, but I'm saying that like his energy, the predominant energy of this person is healed, is good. Okay. And yeah, it was just overall a good experience.